So here's the plan today. We're gonna wash and then drive my F10 M5. Clearly it's already been cleaned, so we'll rewind back to this morning where I washed the car, give you some insights there, maybe get you some different angles, and then we're gonna go for a drive. I haven't done any driving impression videos of this car, so we're gonna call this an OG wash and drive Sunday morning. But I wanted to give you a little walk around of the car before I jumped in and drove it. Actually, for you guys, I guess, before I rewind and go wash it and then jump in and drive it. But I think the car looks the part now. What do you think? The fit of the wheels is good, the suspension is good. It sounds quite a bit better. I'll get some exterior exhaust videos here over the course of the next couple of weeks. But I wanted to give you some more insight into the car. It's really growing on me. I've come around to the fact of maybe keeping this car, unless somebody wants to make me an offer that I can't refuse. But it certainly looks the part of what I would say an OG spec M5 would look like, even with the Grandpa Silver. I'm going to show you a little bit of the washing process. The car is coated with G-Technic CSL, topped with 2 coats of EXO V4, and then has bead maker on it. And then we'll do some wheel cleaning as well, and then get into a little driving video. My initial plan was always to make wash and drives 20 minutes long, but I said scrap that. We're gonna make it as long as it needs to be. So let's go head out to the wash bay from earlier this morning, and then after that we'll take it for a drive. So let me show you a wheel cleaning process. I like to make sure I'm blowing out all the ceramic pad dust. The biggest issue I find with carbon ceramics is the buildup of dust from the pads. And so I like to blow out all these little cracks and the dust thinger. Man, I really need to cut this thing back because the regular wheel device doesn't fit in here. This Incredibrush doesn't work. But I like to get in here, blow out the whole thing. That's what I find helps with squeaks. Notice how much better, if you've watched other videos where I'm using dedicated wheel coatings, this just works so much better, I think. So I'm using 50/50 P&S brake buster. You know, some people have talked about the messiness of a foam cannon. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'll switch back someday, but I like the foam of the foam cannon, and getting it a little bit on the surface of the paint doesn't really matter. The wheels are painted too. So I'm gonna clean up here with an easy detail. Even that doesn't fit. Behind this darn thing. We have carbon ceramics, for gosh sakes. We don't need it that big. It's probably the same plate as the non-carbon ceramic cars have. So I'm generally going to clean up the barrel of the wheel and then hit up our fender liners. I don't think it does. Nope. Let's try our little brush. Dang, I hate that. I'm definitely going to modify that. It's when you know that cleaning is a priority. This is a Race Glaze XL brush. I'm not much of a brush guy. Lots of people love using brushes for everything. I don't know. Maybe I should use it in this area here. Maybe that would help me stay a little cleaner. This is the one area on this black satin wheels that I tend to not get as clean as I'd like. So maybe on these specific wheels I should do it that way. Grab lambskin mitt, clean up the perimeter. Clean the back side of the wheel.
I really like these wheels. I know some people said they don't like them, but I just don't think the M5, at least I've never seen photos, I just don't think it looks as good as other cars do with aftermarket wheels. Like the E92 M3, I think it looks way better with certain aftermarket wheels than it does even with the decent looking 359M competition package wheels. But I don't know, the M5 to me, I think it's just best suited for the wheels that are on it. Simply rinse, and that's the wheel cleaning process. I've really enjoyed this transition to this type of wheel cleaner versus a sodium thioglycolate version, where it will turn purple, especially with all the carbon ceramics. 2 of the 4 cars that I have, actually no, 3 of the 4 cars that I have carbon ceramics, so there's not really any need for that. I find that this is the best way to do it. So let's get our foam cannon filled up. So check out this thing. I think I'm really digging this. It's relatively inexpensive. I think it's like 30 bucks or something like that. But this water nozzle, they're readily available for me to order in bulk quantity. Ah, shoot. But I really like the spray pattern of this. I like the operation, it's easy to grab. It's on, off. It's a really interesting spray profile. It has like a perfect, I think that's the perfect bucket filling profile. Lots of water, lots of flow, a little bit of, you can see a little bit of pressure so I can agitate. I think I'm gonna order these for the store. It's part stainless and aluminum. These are really, really nice find by another OG follower. Said, look, I know this thing looks cheap, but you got to check this thing out because it's pretty nice. I have to agree. Adam soap, so good. So I was thinking about this also. I mean, MTM has really got to get moving. I don't know why today, all these years, I finally decided I'd knock a bottle over like 4 times when I was doing the wheels. I'm like, it's time for a new design. I need to make this whole thing better. So I'm going to start pushing. Otherwise, somebody's going to do it. So they better move. Can't get complacent when the product, what's so fascinating is that all the copies of this, why would you copy this? It's really not all that great. The function is great, and that's the part that the Chinese ones have a tough time emulating, but the design needs to be different. So anyway, just something that occurred to me. Let's rinse this thing off. So the car has G-Technic Crystal Serum Light topped with 2 coats of EXO V4 and a coat of bead maker on top of that. And the biggest difference between wax and a coating to me is right here. This spot with any kind of wax tends to fail much, much quicker. I don't know because it's exposed to more dirt, but I find this area to be much more difficult for a wax to hold up. And I know everybody gets super excited about water beading, but this, I wouldn't call this a particularly gifted water beading combination. But who cares? The protection, I think, is what's on point. And the beading will be better when we do the surface cleaning. Of course, this is coated, that's coated. Just makes cleanup nice and easy. All right, let's foam it. So this is foam a few minutes in, and you know, I know everybody chases foam, but this is, I don't know, there's an appropriate and an inappropriate amount. And depending on, this is why Adam is, I think, is pretty smart about this and having 3 different types of soaps. You have regular, ultra foam, and mega foam. And I think I look at it as those other types of foaming soaps would be good depending on your application. You know, you'd want more foaming capability if you had a pressure washer with lower flow, or you didn't have it set up properly with right orifices and things like that, or if you're using a garden hose foamer, that's where the heavier foaming soaps I think are advantageous. But in my case, with a better pressure washer and a proper setup, so if you use any of my setups, I think you're going to want to use the regular Adam soap. So I'm cheating the system here for the video. I'm washing the back first, just because where the sun is, I just hate the color of the camera when I'm out here in the day and the sun is off. So I'm going to wash a little bit differently than I normally would. But I'm telling you, I think wax is still a viable option. There's a little bit of water buildup, mineral buildup that was sitting here, but it is wiping right off. I can feel it. But the slickness of this coating combination is really good, and I think it looks okay. I think wax still looks a little bit better, like 845, Powerlock 845, but if you can stomach the $110 it costs you. So I haven't figured out exactly what the cost difference is, because I frankly don't care, but it's probably 6 or 8 times the cost to do this, and probably lasts twice as long. You know, I'm not gonna let a coating sit on my frickin' car for 3 years. It's gonna get contaminated. I'm gonna have to pull it off and start over. But I think that's the realistic expectation that I have for this coating combination over the wax. And like I said, the biggest advantage is on the higher impact areas where you have heavier dirt, more stuff getting on the surface. I think you end up with a better result. Longevity result, anyway. Man, this protected surface makes washing such a great experience. So all that work, all that prepping, it makes life so much better. So I find coatings and waxes tend to hold up well on the front of the car. It's the back area near the trunk I find tends to get contaminated and beat up quicker. But you can even see a different reaction after I wipe the car. It's so slick. This has more of a rejecting of everything than the wax does. I guess that would be the same for any coating. All right, before the sun changes, let's rinse it here. Now that it's clean, the water behavior is a little bit different. But remember, water behavior is not what this game is all about. I know that water behavior is fun, but we're in this for the combination of all aspects of washing and protection. Forget water behavior. Erase that from your frickin' brain. Or just realize it's all for fun. For me, it's about the surface tension, the slickness of the surface when I touch it, combined with how it looks, its chemical resistance, not just how it beads water. Oh man, after washing the RS without any kind of protection on it, and then washing this, holy crap. Screw that Corvette. That one, Corvette's gonna wait. The RS has gotta get done. This makes the washing experience magical. So Michelle just came out and said, oh, I wanna take my M5. I said, ha, your M5? Get out of here. It's mine now. As we all know, it never really was. It's too good. It's too good now. I do like it. I don't know if I'm going to keep it, but I do like it. You know, it may leave in favor of some other new project to work on. You know, the permanent cars are the E92 and the GT3 RS. Somebody was yelling at me the other day about being wishy-washy. I said, I'm not wishy-washy. I'm just living the freaking dream, man. You get to buy all these cars and put all the parts on them that I could ever possibly want, and then go sell it and do something else. I mean, isn't that the dream? Jeez. Sorry. But it's my dream anyway. I don't give a crap about driving it on the track. Who cares? I don't care about that. It's your thing, not mine. My thing is doing this. This is a great example of an M5 now. You'll see when we go for a drive here in a few minutes, but that doesn't mean it has to stay forever. I'm not feeling too confident about this being as water and air is shooting right through the adhesive. I'm not feeling too great about it staying put. I took those blackout thingers off if you saw on Instagram. I need to get the Tarex out to clean the rest of the puppy. Everything's just so nice and clean on this thing in comparison to where it was. I mean, this car is still not, it's far from perfect, but that's what makes it, I think, enjoyable. I mean, none of my cars, I guess the RS is pretty perfect right now, but once one trip to the mountains and that will go away. But this is really nice. I really dig it. This splitter is awesome. And you see this thing rolling down the road. Just looks tough. It's also helpful on the trim to hit it with bead maker periodically after every wash. The surface is so slick. Using this as a drying aid, just a nice combo. Don't overcomplicate it. That's what's cool. The cool part about having the coating, a real coating, not some spray-on bullcrap, is I don't need to stress about my darn top coat. It's just a drying aid that adds hopefully a little bit of look. Maybe aids in keeping the coating looking nicer, a little longer. But we're still gonna have contamination in 2 years or a year and a half anyway. So we're still gonna have to clean this thing up. In my case, that means polish it off, start over. In your case, you do what you want. All right, so I'm gonna go finish drying. All right, let's wrap up the wash here. I've got 4 wheel towels, well, my wheel towels, a different race glaze brush. This is one that I use only for applying pearl. I need to get some pearl from the garage down to the very last little bit. And one thing I'm missing is bead maker. I need some bead maker too. Dry it off or finish up the wheels here and we'll take it for a spin. You know, my original concept for wash and drive was to lure in others, screw others. If you can't handle getting all the information, then I'm not the right guy for you. I assume that anybody who watches a video that I make isn't stupid. You can decide to skip around if you'd like. So I'm just gonna dry the surface. And then I have pearl in my bottle here, diluted 1:1. I also wanna go grab a razor blade because somehow, even doing it on the Source Garage wheel stand, I somehow managed to miss some nibs. Blame it on you guys for making me make videos. I like the idea a little introduction on the satin wheels of using the brush here, because this is the one spot that I tend to end up missing some dirt. I find that it takes the tires a few cycles of this to really take well to pearl. So I got the second iteration of press-all bottles. I think we fixed 2 of them, and the other ones seem to be worse, where now they're all leaking out the bottom like this one is right now, making a giant mess. In fact, I'm done with this thing. And when I got into this chasing bottles thing, one thing I didn't factor in was that some of them wouldn't work. I thought we would just improve them. Well, when you throw a few thousand of them out into the wild, you figure out quickly all the potential problems. Wipe the excess. And we'll call it a wrap for the wash. I'll see you in about a second to go for a drive. All right, so there's nothing better than going for a drive in a clean car. So let's go for a spin. Drive mode, M2, the way I have M2 set up is Sport Plus, throttle, sport suspension, sport steering. M1 I have set up with sport throttle, comfort suspension, and sport steering. So actually let's start in M1. And then M1 I have set to drive, which would be automatic, which I find myself driving most of the time in this car, and then M2 would be manual, where I'd use the paddle shifter. So we'll kind of swap back and forth. Man, this car is completely different, or feels completely different than it did when I first bought it. So just to recap, if you haven't watched the series, let's see if I can remember what's on the car. The only part I haven't done yet is the Dynon intake, which I suspect won't make a huge difference, but you know, we'll maybe make a couple of horsepower, maybe sound a little bit different. But the car has a Dynon rear section exhaust, OE center section. I have AMS downpipes, catted downpipes, high flow catted downpipes, which did make quite a bit of difference. We thermally wrapped those. I have Dynon suspension, which is a sleeve kit. So it's Dynon sleeved coilovers. So the car is probably, I don't know, 9/10 of an inch lower in the front and 1/2 an inch lower in the rear. You saw the exterior shots. The car looks quite a bit different. This car has carbon ceramic brakes. When I got it, it had 17,000, so it has 18,600 miles on it. Michelle drove it from Kentucky, where the gentleman that owned it had it. He was the second owner. I think the car had a $135,000 sticker. We're not quite warm yet, so we'll take it easy here for a minute or two. This car has essentially everything except for the one thing that'd be nice, which was full leather, but it has every other option, which is why the thing has a $130,000 sticker. And then, of course, I'm going to modify it from there. Let's see, what else have we done to it? So we did piano black interior, which I don't believe you can order anymore. I wanted to do the carbon fiber interior parts, this part here, but they discontinued, don't make it anymore. So I had I&D paint me some piano black interior. It's the next best thing I could get outside of carbon fiber. I have M Performance steering wheel. And this car has heads-up display, so I decided, in a moment of weakness, I bought the electronic steering wheel, and I've gone back and swapped back to doing the regular M Performance steering wheel. 3D design paddles, and then the M Performance has this carbon fiber piece here, and I also did the carbon fiber shifter so that these two would match. So the DCT cover. This is a 7-speed dual clutch transmission car, which I think suits the M5 better. I mean, I think this is a little too big for a manual. So I stuck with got the DCT option, because the original plan of this was to be the family flex vehicle. Now it's a bit too nice. I feel like Michelle's never getting it again. So I do, have to swap cars with her occasionally when we need the Raptor for something else. At PSI down in Orlando, we did the active auto work tune. So I guess the car, since I did catted downpipe, should make somewhere around 600 horsepower at the wheels. Maybe a little more, a little less. Doesn't really matter. All I know is that it's really fast. The interior needed a really, really deep leather conditioning and cleaning, so the interior looks good. I don't have to replace any other parts in here. Everything looks proper. I did replace this plastic piece here because it was a little beat up. So the column cover, the center column here cover, I had to replace to make it look clean, right? So I added the rear carbon spoiler, the splitter, the front carbon fiber splitter, did the carbon fiber mirror caps that I've never done on any car before, and now it's set up. The other thing we did was steam cleaned and obviously corrected and protected the car with the coating that I mentioned earlier. Had to really do a heavy compound on this silver. It took a lot of work to get it to look as good as it does now. The wheels, I ended up buying OE, brand new set of OE black 343M wheels. This car is so fast. It's pretty remarkable how fast this monster car is. I do have a whistle out here, and I think it's the carbon fiber mirror cap. I do want to replace the pillars here, the pillar shadow line trim. It doesn't look particularly good, so I need to fix that. But other than that, the car is pretty sorted, pretty dialed in. It's not perfect by any means, but I think it's a really nice example of what an M5 could and should be. We're gonna roll these people so we don't get stuck behind them. So let's go manual. The tricky part with this car being so darn torque heavy and having so much darn horsepower is that we really have to watch our speeds, because you can really get moving in this thing. This is a highway monster, highway cruiser. The active sound is turned off on this, so I don't have the BMW active sound interfering with the sound of the car. But as you can hear, it doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of noise inside the car. It certainly isn't loud by any means. There is drone though, so there's a little bit of drone that's I don't think it's obnoxious. The drone actually kind of helps us hear what the car sounds like, so that's a good thing. But I find myself not inspired to drive this thing aggressively, even with the suspension upgrades. I find myself doing this occasionally, but I don't find myself driving it, in the curves aggressively. It just doesn't. The car doesn't ask for that like other cars that I have. It just doesn't seem or feel quite right. Even though it's plenty capable of doing it, it's just not something that it inspires. What it does inspire is pure, insanely fast straight line. It's like a German meathead muscle car. Man, I can't even imagine. I think this would pull on my GT3 RS no problem, from a roll. I mean, it's just, even fourth gear to do this pull. It's just, you can see me kind of getting pushed back in my seat. It's pretty remarkable. It's just, it feels almost a little bit surreal. It feels odd that the car does that. And I do find, I'll be making an exhaust video probably later today, an exterior video. I do find it sounds a lot better outside of the car, that you don't really get a whole heck of a lot of feedback in here in the cockpit. It just doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of noise. I also find myself driving in the auto mode much more often than driving in manual. For me, having all these more aggressive, smaller sports cars, this car just suits the comfort muscle car, if you will. it fits that persona really well, where I don't have to work very hard on this. And I honestly, most of the time, I'm going to throw it and drive and just put my hand on the top of the steering wheel and just cruise. And that's what this car does well. I wouldn't call it fun. You know, I don't get in this car to have fun. I get in this car to get somewhere. And that's where I think this would be a mistake to get a car like this if it's your only car, especially if you're up north. You know, where you're gonna have a hard time driving this thing around in the snow. And again, if I put the windows down for you, we can do that for a second here. There's not a whole heck of a lot of sound that you get. There's a little just kind of low-end grumble that we get. You know, delete the active sound and you don't have that fake sort of digital sound that comes into the car. But there's like a little bit of grumble that is kind of cool. And I kind of like that this is tame. You know, but again, if this is my only car, I just don't think you can make this thing sound good by you don't just add volume to this, because then you get all the weird turbo crap that turbo cars have. You get some whistle, which you heard earlier, but you don't get the kind of awesome visceral sound that you get from other cars. But I do get raw, straight line performance. So the car has Michelin Pilot Sport 4s, PS4s. And there's no shake, there's no shimmy, everything's driving straight. I do need to adjust the steering wheel whenever I put the new one on. I'm not sure why, but the teeth should be in the same spot, but the steering wheel is a little bit off, so I'm going to get that fixed this week. So really there's only three things I have left to do. It's the intake, the Dynon intake, which is a big project, fixing the pillars on the side here, the B pillars, getting new ones there because they're dented, and then getting the steering wheel straightened out. But everything else on the car is just, it's done. It's drivable, it's comfortable, it's everything I would want it to be. One thing that would be really cool, if you were to retrofit, I don't think I'll do this, but it's something that if I do keep the car longer term, it'd be another project to chase. That would be to do like an F80 competition package seats in this car. I think that would make a big difference. You know, these have massagers and all this other stuff, but it also means that it's, you know, the seats are just kind of couchy, you know. They're not bad, plenty of adjustments, but it feels like a big sofa that I'm sitting on, and I think I would feel a little bit better if I had some better seats in this car that weren't so big and bulky. But I'm telling you, the thing that's made me like this car and change my opinion completely is the darn steering wheel. I know that's going to anger some of you and sound a bit ridiculous, but changing the steering wheel has changed the whole feel of the car. It's made a huge difference. It looks cool too. But I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit afraid of this thing. I don't find traction to be too much of an issue. I mean, that's a common complaint when you get, you know, we have 600 plus foot-pounds of torque. I just manage it with my right foot, you know, just manage the throttle. But you could get yourself into trouble with this by turning off the traction control. I mean, we're doing crazy speeds on this back road in this monster car almost too easily, because you hear how comfortable and quiet this thing is. But I don't find traction to be much of an issue at all. I don't think I'd change anything on the setup that I've done. I love the Dynon suspension on this because I wouldn't want something super aggressive. Again, the purpose of this is to be the big, bulky, comfortable executive car. This is the car that I get in and drive to where I need to get to. the really difficult thing with this car, it would be great if the back seat was useful. It's so freaking small. Kate is 5 years old and she's like medium sized. Ryan is 8, almost 9 years old, and is a monster baby, a mega baby. So the issue I have is that, you know, Kate's feet kind of poke out too much in her booster seat, and Ryan's just too big. And so what we end up doing is Ryan ends up sitting up front and moves the seat up, and so Kate's feet can kind of slowly dangle downward. It's just frustrating how the way that it's set up. It's almost like the back seat needs to be back 6 or 8 inches more. Even if it was 4 inches more, it would be much more useful. It's just not. It's not a very practical sedan. But I saw Michelle driving it the other day when I was in my M3, and oh man, this thing looks sick. It certainly has presence, especially with the rear diffuser, the RKP rear diffuser. It just looks tough. Like, I haven't even gotten in it yet. I mean, that's 0 to 85 in not very long. I'm not a pure power guy. I'm looking for the experience. And so this car offers plenty of power, but lacks, I think, a bunch of the experience component that I tend to prefer. You know, like my E92 M3 is miles slower than this thing, and I have a whole lot more fun in it. But if you like going fast and straight, and you know, you can make this thing, I don't want to say for not a lot of money, because it will be a lot of money to make it fast, but this thing is your car, because it'll go really fast. Maybe not so straight, semi-straight, we'll call it. And again, I think it's manageable. I mean, it's manageable horsepower, at least it is for me. But you know, you could get yourself into trouble really quickly in something like this. But you can hear my tone difference, and this is why I approach these things. This is why I bought a Corvette. This is why I bought the M5. This is why I buy other, you know, cars that are interesting to me. I'm not sure if I'm going to love it, and I'm at a point now in my life where if I don't love it, then I just move on. And what I do love is the experience of buying, modifying, trying, you know, to get things right. And, you know, there was one point where this car was darn undrivable. You know, the alignment was way off and everything was kind of wonky on it, and it didn't look very good, I thought. But I could see in my head what this thing could be, and then the question is, will I like that? Will I enjoy the experience? And I mean, the jury's still out on that, and I'll probably still sell this in 6 months or so, do something else, try something different. It's fast. It's real fast. Like, it's hard because it's so, I bet you're getting this sense with the GoPro, it's so, it feels so tame, but yet it's so not. You could very easily get into a whole lot of trouble in a car like this, both with the police and just from you putting it into a ditch somewhere. But the Dynon suspension is so darn compliant. I mean, it's stock shocks, and we're just lowering it a little bit, and in some cases adding a little bit of travel, depending on how you set it up. Or at least maintaining enough travel. I guess adding travel isn't the right word, but maintaining a proper amount of travel so that you still get a comfortable ride, because that can really mess up your experience. And I've learned that a lot from going too far with suspensions and not setting them up properly. Because unless you're going to do time trials on the track and you have somebody who really knows what they're doing, there's just so many little minute tweaks that you can make to play with the suspension, and unless you're an expert, it's just really hard to improve, and you end up hurting the car when you do like 3-way remote reservoir, you know, these awesome suspensions that look so cool, and then your ride ends up suffering big time from it. So when I was thinking about making this video, I'm like, this thing, it's kind of hard to show how fast it is, because it just, I mean, I'm going fast, just trust me on that. But it certainly doesn't feel it, doesn't sound it, doesn't look it. And so in order to get any kind of experience out of this thing, you've got to go really fast, where it's, you know, dangerous from all angles. But it sure is nice to jump in this and drive to, say, you know, an hour to Orlando on the highway. I don't experience any of the reliability issues that everybody's always talking about with M cars, probably because I take care of them. And most people don't take care of their stuff. So if you don't take care of your car, then you're likely going to have issues with a car like this. And it's going to cost quite a bit to fix. So there's third gear pull, a little traction. I always forget I've got the heads-up display. It's kind of interesting knowing that you will annihilate pretty much every other car. It's the same weird feel I have with the Z06. What is that? I think I may need to tighten down the steering wheel a bit more. Getting a little feedback through it. And you certainly would have to be wary of coming out of a turn with all that torque. You have to roll on the throttle. You know, traction control will help you, but I think you could very easily end up in a wall on the side of the road. So this is the thing, is I know that this, you know, riding around in third gear at 4,500 RPMs, 5,000 RPMs sounds probably pretty cool outside, but inside the car you only get a little hint of it. So that's the you know, initial sort of drive. I'll probably do several other driving videos of this car. Maybe take it, I doubt I would take this to the mountains. Unless we were taking like a family trip to the mountains and I just happened to take this car. You could still have fun with it. Just not as much fun as I like to have with a much smaller, more nimble car. But I get it, you know, I understand it. And I'm glad I've done it. And we're not 100% done with it yet, but it's good. Go back to drive. And just know that most of the time I'm in D1, so I generally do manual 2 or sport 2, I guess it shows on the thing, or just number, you know, the number of the gear. So sport version 2 or just drive 1 is generally what I end up using. So anyway, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for some exterior stuff so we can capture the exhaust sound, but the combination of the AMS and the Dynon, I think, is a good grown-up version of how, you know, how you would want to do the car. So anyway, thanks for watching this wash and drive. I'd like to do a wash and drive soon on the M3 as well, and of course the Z06 when I get it back to running properly. So anyway, thanks for watching this one. As always, stay tuned for more crazy. See you soon.